Are your ulcerative colitis symptoms proving difficult to manage? Tremfya guselkumab can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. At 1 year, many patients taking Tremfya achieved clinical remission, and some patients also achieved endoscopic remission. Individual results may vary. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Ask your doctor if Tremfya can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more, or visit tremfyaradio.com.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
People love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
You are entering the Stone Zone. This is the place for politics, where we try to bring you the inside skinny on what's really happening in our nation's capital and across the country. President Donald Trump declared last night that because Joe Biden never actually signed several pardons, that those pardons are void and vacant. You see, the pardons in question were signed with an auto pen. The pardons that Sleepy Joe Biden gave to the unselect committee of political thugs and many others are hereby declared void, vacant, and of no force or effect, the president said, because they had been done by auto pen. In other words, Trump said, Joe Biden did not only not sign them, but more importantly, he didn't even know anything about them. The necessary pardoning documents were never explained to or approved by Biden himself. He knew nothing about them at all, and the people that did, well, they may have committed a crime. This would explain, by the way, perhaps why Biden pardoned hardened criminals, murderers on death row, who had never expressed any regret or remorse and whose families knew nothing about their upcoming pardons. Also why he suddenly pardoned a Chinese national who was arrested with a major stash of child pornography. Therefore, all of those on the unselect January 6th committee who destroyed and deleted all the evidence obtained in their 2-year witch hunt of the president and me, among others, should fully understand that they will now be subjected to investigation at the highest level. The fact is, they were probably responsible for the documents that were signed on their behalf without the knowledge or consent of the worst president in the history of our country. That would be crooked Joe Biden. Last week, the Missouri Attorney General, Andrew Bailey, stated that all actions signed by auto pen, instead of Joe Biden himself, are legally void. Attorney General Bailey demanded a Justice Department investigation after a bombshell report by the Conservative Heritage Foundation's Oversight Project showed that Biden wasn't always aware of what he was approving and that the staff were forging Biden's signature using an auto pen. That's a mechanical device that replicates the president's signature. It's used on nearly every executive order on official documents during Biden's tenure. Other presidents have disproportionately signed their real name with a pen. In fact, on the date that many of these preemptive pardons were signed, Joe Biden was on vacation in St. Croix. But then again, he was on vacation for most of his time as president. It is amazing to me because I was subjected to the January 6th witch hunt. There was a witness, Cassidy Hutchinson. She was an assistant to White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. She testified under oath that the president told Meadows to call me and General Michael Flynn on January 5th to find out what was going to happen on January 6th. The problem with that claim under oath is that it's not true. I've never spoken to Mark Meadows in my life in any format, not by text, not by phone call. I may have met him once in a green room at Fox. This was long before Donald Trump was president and he was a congressman. Hutchison goes on to say that Meadows was supposed to go to a meeting in a war room at the Willard Hotel, where I guess they were game planning, attempting to seek a delay in the certification of the Electoral College, but that she dissuaded her boss, Meadows, from attending, but that Meadows called Stone and General Flynn afterwards to get a rundown on the meeting. That was the second act of perjury. That phone call never took place. There's no phone record. I checked with Mike Flynn. He's never talked to Mark Meadows either. Perfect example of Liz Cheney going around the backs of the attorneys to witnesses like Hutchinson and coaching them on false testimony. That's called perjury. Trump has now decided to ignore a federal court order to halt deportation flights of Venezuelan gang members and is vowing to take it all the way to the Supreme Court. You see, there was a time in America that we thought that the judicial branch was non-political. Boy, did I learn the hard way that that's not true. In my own personal case, where they essentially tried to frame me for Russian collusion that doesn't exist, but after seizing over 1 million emails from me and telling 2 federal judges that they had probable cause to charge me for treason, conspiracy against the United States, counterfeiting, money laundering, unauthorized access to a government computer, aiding and abetting a conspiracy before and after the fact, wire fraud and mail fraud. After going through all my emails, all my text messages, all my phone calls, they found no evidence of any of those crimes. That was after they raided both my home and my office, tearing through both places for 13 hours straight, finding nothing whatsoever that they could use in court against me. So they cook up these charges against you. Now, in my case, the judge ruled that I could not introduce, or my defense attorneys could not introduce any evidence of corruption by the FBI, the Department of Justice, the Special Counsel's Office, or any member of Congress. I don't want to mention any names, Adam Schiff. So it is amazing that these federal judges, who are supposed to be non-political, issue a completely political order like this. Judge James Boasberg, he replaced the epically corrupt Beryl Powell. Beryl Powell was a judge who ordered that Donald Trump's own lawyers had to testify against him in the so-called documents case, a clear violation of the Sixth Amendment of the United States. This case now with Judge Boasberg, the head of the D.C. district judges, ruling that the Venezuelan gangs cannot be shipped back to where they came from, was unconstitutional. But he ordered a 14-day restraining order to prevent the administration from invoking the 1789 Alien Enemies Act as a justification for deporting illegal immigrants convicted of crimes without hearings. Any plane containing these folks is going to take off or is in the air needs to be returned to the United States, however that is accomplished, Judge Boasberg wrote. Despite that order, a day later, the first flight carrying more than 250 Venezuelan gang members left the U.S. bound for El Salvador, where they were escorted off the plane by heavily armed commandos and brought to the notorious Terrorism Confinement Center. The flights included 238 members of the Venezuela prison gang called Tren de Aragua, as well as 23 members of MS-13, the particularly violent gang. Salvadorian President Nayib Bukele announced all of this last Sunday morning. As Bukele, who is a friend of mine, recently sent me some of the great coffee from his privately owned coffee plantation, said, "These are monsters sent into our country by crooked Joe Biden and the radical left Democrats. How dare they? Thank you for returning them. President Bukele has set up a situation in which he went from having one of the most dangerous, unstable countries in this hemisphere to having very close to a model society with low crime and economic opportunity, proving that you can clean up a country that is racked by crime. He has said to the president, "Thank you, Mr. President. This should never have been allowed to happen. That would only happen because of the incompetent Democrat leadership. We will never forget." Last night on Air Force One, Trump was being asked about this and why he invoked the 1789 Alien Enemies Act that has only been used in times of war. And he said, "This is a time of war, because Biden allowed millions of people, many of them criminals, into our country, and that is an invasion." New York U.S. Senator and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is at it again. He had to be corrected by Elon Musk. It was interesting to me that in the space of 72 hours, both Chuck Schumer and his erstwhile primary opponent for the U.S. Senate in New York, Congresswoman AOC, both repeated and recycled the lie again that Donald Trump intends to eliminate Social Security and Medicare. I'm a 50-year veteran of the political wars. I've been through many elections. Why is it that every 2 years the Democrats pull out this same old saw? It's a canard, a falsehood. It's a lie. But once again, Chuck Schumer's out there claiming that that is the Republicans' secret plan. Meanwhile, Chuck Schumer is facing a significant challenge to his own leadership role inside the Democrat Party. Democrats are furious that Schumer caved to the Republicans and voted to invoke cloture. That means bring to a vote the continuing resolution to fund the government. Prior to this cloture vote, which ended debate on the spending bill, Schumer said that he changed his mind in order to prevent President Donald Trump from grabbing more power. You see, it's always Trump's fault. Doesn't matter what happens. It's always Trump's fault. Although some analysts believe that Schumer came to understand that his party would own a subsequent government shutdown. He wants full control over government spending, said Schumer. He isn't the first president to want this, but he's the first president to cower his party into submission. So this Republican rejection leads us to a decision, said Schumer. And it's not a really tough decision. It's Hobson's choice. Either proceed with the bill before us or risk Donald Trump throwing America into chaos and a shutdown. That, in Schumer's case, it was no choice at all. In reality, Republicans, to a member, voted to pass the legislation and keep the government open. I think only Thomas Massie of Kentucky voted against it, much to the ire of President Trump. While the CR bill is bad, the potential for a shutdown has consequences for America that are much, much worse. For sure, the Republican bill is a terrible option. I, too, am sick of kicking the can down the road. But with Elon Musk and his colleagues at Doge uncovering not millions, not billions, but trillions of dollars of waste, fraud, and corruption, and with the record revenues generated by the last Trump tax cut, and therefore the predictable jump in revenues that will result when the Trump tax cuts are renewed, we may actually be moving to a balanced budget, something we haven't had since Dwight Eisenhower was president. Since his vote, Schumer has been hammered by his fellow Democrats. Some criticized him by name. Others, like former Speaker Nancy Pelosi, just hinted at it. Donald Trump and Elon Musk must have offered the Congress a false choice between a government shutdown and a blank check that makes a devastating assault on the well-being working families of America, said Nancy Pelosi. Now, I heard last week that she had gotten a $14 million grant to study grapes at her Northern California vineyard. Turns out that story was not true. She made so much money on insider trading, she didn't need the money. I'm Roger Stone. This is the Stone Zone, and we'll be right back.
is the Stone Zone. Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
And we're back in the Stone Zone. The Democrat Party has hit new polling lows. A new poll by NBC News, of all people, shows the Democrat Party in the worst shape in its entire history. At this point, only 27% of voters say they have a positive view of the party, which is the party's lowest positive rating in an NBC poll dating back to 1990. 7% of those say that their views are very positive. This is pathetic. As I said this weekend, the old Democrat Party, the party of John F. Kennedy, the party of Harry Truman, the party that believed in free enterprise and capitalism, a strong national defense, that party is dead, having been hijacked by a Marxist, leftist, freak fringe. The Democrat Party of working people, the party that my parents once belonged to, just no longer with us. Hunter Biden has fled to South Africa on an ultra-luxurious vacation, and he has round-the-clock Secret Service protection in order to avoid a grueling deposition in a case that he himself filed in the first place. 2 weeks ago, Hunter Biden filed in court that he was too broke to continue the lawsuit that he initiated against Garrett Ziegler, a former Trump White House aide, and his organization, MarcoPolo.org. You see, they published all of an online database, including all 128,000 emails found on Hunter Biden's infamous laptop. Last Thursday, California District Judge Herman Vera granted Hunter's motion to dismiss the case because of Hunter's plea that he was too broke to continue the lawsuit. But photographs show Hunter was already in Cape Town that night, staying in a $500 a night beachfront villa described on its website as ultra luxurious, a designer home with spectacular 180 degrees unobstructed views of the beautiful sea. Ziegler's lawyers told the court last week that Hunter had fled to South Africa to avoid testifying in his deposition in this case, a deposition that was set for this week. He was in South Africa before the judge even decided the case. That means he was assuming his daddy's appointee was going to rubber stamp his motion before the court. And so it was. It was here on the Stone Zone that we broke the news that a man was found with a gun inside the Capitol, both during the inauguration when Trump was sworn in the rotunda, and again the night of the State of the Union address. And the former Capitol Hill police officer who helped us break that story, Tarek Johnson, was joining us next. So, whatever you do, folks, stay in the zone and don't touch that dial.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
They went after a guy named Roger Stone who's sitting in the office. And I'll say this in front of Roger, he's no baby. And right now he's cleaner than anybody in this place. No, they treated him very unfairly.
Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
And we're back in the Stone Zone. Act Blue, which is the premier fundraising machine for the Democrat Party, faces an uncertain future amid investigations, staff departures, and political criticism. Act Blue has been accused by Republicans of illegally collecting money for Democrats in the 2024 election, but we now learn that they were using these deceptive and presumably illegal practices far earlier. In essence, a person was allowed to go online and donate to candidates either through PayPal, Google Pay, Venmo, or through a credit card. But in the case where they used a credit card, that was never matched with their mailing address. That function was turned off. So in other words, they funneled millions of dollars to various Democrats. And then when investigators go out and find the actual donor, In many cases, donors who gave multiple contributions over a long period of time, well, they say they never gave any political donations. Among the very worst offenders is New York Attorney General Letitia James. We'll have a lot more on this story for you as it develops. Joining us now is Tarik T.K. Johnson. Tarik Johnson is a former lieutenant in the U.S. Capitol Police, known for his role during the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot. A 23-year veteran of the force, he was responsible for overseeing routine operations at the Capitol on that day. On January 6th, as that situation escalated, Johnson found himself amid the chaos. In an effort to manage the crowd and ensure the safety of officers, lawmakers, and the public, he donned a Make America Great hat, believing it would help him navigate through the rioters without confrontation. This action, however, ended up leading to his suspension and his eventual resignation from the force. Now, as I said earlier, Tarik Johnson was a key source in exposing the fact that a man got into the Capitol during the inauguration when Donald Trump was sworn in the rotunda, brandishing a gun. And also another individual got into the Capitol in the very same room where President Trump was prior to his State of the Union address. When we broke that story in conjunction with Slingshot.news right here in the Stone Zone, it was only hours later that the chief of the police, Capitol Hill Police, resigned. So here to talk to us about that and the other issues surrounding January 6th, Tarik Johnson joins the Stone Zone. Tarik, welcome.
Roger, thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much.
You're a truth teller, my friend, and we are very, very proud to have you. First, let's go to this most recent incident. You helped us find confirmed sources that told us that indeed there had been a breach of security, particularly in view of the attempts on the president's life in Butler, Pennsylvania, also in West Palm Beach. This seems like an egregious security screw-up, no?
Absolutely. And, discussing exactly what occurred on Capitol Hill, there are two incidents. The first incident, which occurred on January the 20th. Now, my sources got back to me, and they were calling me, and they were giving me bits of information. First, I heard somebody got into the Capitol unauthorized on January 20th, which, is a big deal in and of itself. But then later on, I found out that the individual may have been in possession of a weapon. Now, I was told that the problem with this is that I was told that a high-ranking Capitol official brought the person in and had that person go around security, and then that high-ranking Capitol official took that person to the Capitol Rotunda where Donald Trump gave his where he was being sworn in. And then I heard after, so that's one place where the person was at. And then later on in the day, they do the presidential luncheon in Statuary Hall after that, which is adjacent to that room. So then President Trump goes over to that room, and from what I heard from my sources, that the Capitol Police official then brings that person over to that room as well, and that person actually had lunch. This is what I'm told, in Statuary Hall. Now, you got members of Congress can't get in that room and partake in the presidential luncheon. But this Capitol official decided to bring a guest with a gun inside of that room, in both rooms. Now, the problem with this is that if you have not been vetted by the Capitol Police Secret Service, you can't come, and you're not working the event, you can't come in that building with a gun, even on a day when the president is not there. On this particular day, the president of the United States was there, so which makes it even more egregious. So now, from my sources told me that Manger, J. Thomas Manger, tried to cover up the incident. He did not suspend the command official, he just moved him over to a new section, which typically, if you have something to that nature, that person would have been suspended, and Manger didn't do that. Now, going to the State of the Union incident. So now, the guy comes in, one of the doors on the house side. He has a gun. I don't know if it was in his bag or on his person, but they found him with a gun. So now he didn't actually make it in the actual Capitol, but he made it at the entrance. So they stopped him there. He was arrested. Now, Roger, now this is huge. This is what the man said when he was caught. And he, like, doing the processing of the arrest, he said that, why are people making such a big deal about this? I brought the gun in yesterday. So now that means he got in. So that was the problem. So then the Capitol Police went back. I'm told that they looked at the video, and then they found that the staffer did bring the gun in the day before, and then they suspended the officer. But the problem with that, Roger, is that they suspended the officer immediately for what he did on March the 3rd. President Trump wasn't even there. So the staffer, there's a, and officials are held to a higher standard, but they didn't do it in this case. So, but the major incident, and what I'm being told is that the incident is still being investigated. We don't know for sure if the person that was in the rotunda was a man, was a woman. We don't know yet, because the Capitol Police, they do not have to adhere to the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA. So Manger wouldn't tell anybody anything. So all people wanted to know was, hey, listen, would you mind just talking about this incident and letting the public know what happened? Was it even true? Manger will not say anything. He was trying to cover it up.
He, as you know, resigned or retired, but that's really resignation, within hours of our having this bombshell report right here in the Stone Zone, along with my colleague at slingshot.news, Troy Smith. It is particularly disturbing to me in view of the events in Butler, Pennsylvania, and in West Palm Beach. Normally, if you said at this tumultuous time in American politics, I fear that there would be an attempt on the president's life, you'd call me a conspiracy theorist or worse, except for there have been 2 attempts on the president's life. And in both cases, we still have more questions than we have answers. You're an experienced law enforcement officer. As you point out, the Capitol Hill Police are not under the control of the executive branch. They are under the control of the Congress, specifically the Speaker and the Senate Majority Leader. It leads you to ask many, many questions, but I don't like the idea of anybody being in proximity to the president with a gun, because based on what you're telling me is a senior officer took this person around the mag machines that would have detected the gun. Is that correct? Yes, and that is astronomically huge, and the person wasn't, the main issue was that the person, to my knowledge, was not vetted. And then if the Capitol Police can't go back and say, oh, yeah, that person was vetted and that person did have a right to be there, because if that was the case, then you would not have moved him out of, now his job, he was the Protective Service Bureau commander. So that means he was in charge of like the CID, plainclothes officers. They moved him over and put him over training. And now the training was already good. They had a senior deputy chief there who handles everything. So that deputy chief, he's not going to say it, but he absolutely didn't need the guy that they brought over there. So then you take him, the actual person, and I'm hearing that the person his name was Benedict, and he was the assistant chief that Manger hired. He was the one that they put over in training. So now you move him over via, and then you leave Protective Service Bureau and you put over that a deputy chief when it's supposed to be an assistant chief, and you put that person over Benedict over training. That's the problem. So the question is, why did you just move him and not suspend him? That's number one. And number two, why did you suspend the officer who committed, and the officer did make a mistake because he didn't catch the gun on the 3rd, but you suspend him immediately, but you don't do that to the command official who is of a higher rank, who is held to a higher standard. And this is the thing. And the main issue is not even what I'm hearing with the assistant chief who brought the person in.
that's bad. But the fact that you have the Capitol Police Chief who's trying to cover it up, and Roger, and this is the big thing. Donald Trump was shot in July. It hasn't even been a year yet since the man was shot. So, and people don't really appreciate this, and some people can't comprehend this. But if people wanted him dead before he was president, you think that these same people want him dead even less now? So you have to give him, and you give any. I mean, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but you got to give the president of the United States of America a high level of protection, and J. Thomas Manger wouldn't do it.
Manger, based on the research I did, has no previous law enforcement experience. He was a lobbyist prior to being named as the Capitol Hill police chief, where he got a $2.8 billion contract for one of his big corporate clients. This makes very little sense to me, but I was glad to see that in the face of all this evidence, he retired, but in essence, he was canned. What orders were Capitol Hill police officers given on or before January 6th?
So just let me clarify one thing. No, Manger was a long-time law enforcement official. He was the chief of Montgomery County, Maryland.
Yes,
police.
You're right. I stand corrected.
Yes, and he was chief of Fairfax. And I don't know if. Okay, now this is the issue. Now, if you followed the January 6th, the events and what occurred after January 6th, there was a lot going out saying that it was a cover up, it was a setup. I put a lot of that out. I stand behind everything I said. January 6th was absolutely a setup, and absolutely it was a cover-up. The person who, now, there are different legs of what occurred on January 6th. We all know that. We know that there were more than likely agents in the crowd, provocateurs. We know all that. But the big thing is this. It was an intel failure of what occurred on January 6th, and that intel failure was primarily from a woman named Yogananda Pittman. So she was the person that was the central figure in the actual setup. The central figure in the cover-up was J. Thomas Manger. Pittman left in 2023, and because of you, Roger, and you deserve a kiss from me, Manger is gone now. Because had you not contacted and worked with Slingshot News and the investigative reporter there, the information that you covered, we didn't see it. You guys found it. If you wouldn't have done what you did, Manger would be slithering around the Capitol Hill buildings today. And thank you for what you did for us, for the country. All
right, folks, when we come back, we're going to talk to Tarek Johnson more about what actually happened on January 6th. You're in the right place because we tell you the stone cold truth right here in the Stone Zone. Whatever you do, don't touch that dial.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
They went after a guy named Roger Stone who's sitting in the office. And I'll say this in front of Roger, he's no baby. And right now he's cleaner than anybody in this place. No, they treated him very unfairly.
Now, get him his own. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
And we're back. We're talking to former lieutenant of the U.S. Capitol Police, Tarek Johnson, a 23-year veteran of the force. He has said publicly in numerous interviews that he believes January 6th was a setup, suggesting that both police officers and demonstrators were placed in a precarious and dangerous situation. We've got about 5 minutes here. I want to try to get to as much of this as we can because, well, Tarek, you are a truth teller, and I salute you for your bravery and your courage of coming forward. You've said that Trump supporters were purposely let into the Capitol by police officers. You've also said that ranking members of the Capitol Police knew in advance that the Capitol was going to be broken into. So where did that intelligence originate from?
Okay, there were intel analysts that worked for the Capitol Police, and they put together a report. That report was 21 TD 159, and it basically told what was going to happen that day. So they sent it. To Pittman. Pittman did not send that report to Chief Stephen's son. Now, she knew Stephen's son was trying to get National Guard support days leading up to January 6th. And he was told, and he as in son was told that the intel that he had didn't articulate the need for the National Guard. Pittman had it, and she wouldn't give it to him. So she wouldn't also give it to who the operations commander. He needed it. She didn't give it to him either. His name was Chad Thomas. He's now gone. He was forced, from what I'm hearing, to sign the NDA upon his retirement. So he can't even speak to you to tell you to confirm what I'm telling you, because he was forced to sign the NDA, I'm being told. But she had the intel. She didn't give it to him. And then January 6th happened because of that. And after that, she was basically heralded as a hero, and then she was awarded a position in California over Berkeley University as their police chief.
The most painful question, we have about 3 minutes. Lieutenant Michael Byrd shot and kills in cold blood a veteran Air Force veteran, Ashley Babbitt, who is unarmed, menacing no one. She shot and killed without warning. Yet Byrd is actually given a medal and an accommodation over what I think was an unwarranted act of violence and a cold-blooded murder. But I want to hear your opinion about it.
Now, like, I was there that day, and Roger, have you heard the radio transmissions that day?
I have not.
Okay, if you want them, because I got your phone number, we can talk about it and I can get them to you. So it was pandemonium over the radio. Even somebody could say, no, January 6th wasn't a big deal. If you just listen to the radio, you would have heard pandemonium. You would hear officers begging command officials for assistance, because I even personally was begging over the radio for help. I was begging Yogananda Pittman specifically, and we were ghosted. We thought, if you listen to the radio, you think the world was coming to an end. Now, I know everybody has their opinion about Michael Byrd, and I'm not going to say if he should have shot her, if he shouldn't have, because I don't get into that. I wasn't there. I don't know what he heard. I don't know what he saw. I know he heard the radio. But the issue is this. He should have never been put in that situation in the first place. The information, we should have been prepared for January 6th. Everybody on the ground that day was aggrieved. And everybody needs to be made whole, in my opinion. But like I said, I'll say it again. He should have never been put in that situation in the first place. And I don't know if you know about this, and I'll make it quick. I ordered the evacuation of the Senate chamber. I don't know if you know this. I did that at 2:28. I was begging Pittman if I could do it, because I knew that we needed to get the people, and when I say the people, the members of Congress, out of the building to de-escalate the situation. She wouldn't give any authorization. So I took it upon myself and I did it. And then I ordered the evacuation of the House at 2:36, because Pittman once again would not help me. If we would have evacuated both chambers at the same time, Ashley Babbitt would be alive today, because by the time she got to the chamber, everybody would have been gone.
All right, I'm afraid we have to wrap it there. Our special thanks to Tarik Johnson, a 23-year veteran of the U.S. Capitol Police, former lieutenant governor, and a truth teller who was helped only last week to break news regarding further security breaches around President Donald Trump. I say the rosary for his safety every single night, folks. I urge you to do the same. Thanks for joining us today in the Stone Zone. God bless you and Godspeed.